portions are flying by, and soon it's going to be Sukkot. We're going to be into the fall festivals, actually Yom Teruah, Yom Kippur, and then Sukkot, and then, hey, we get to start all over again. But a couple things, I will be this weekend, Bezrat Hashem, I'll be up in Mannheim, Pennsylvania. Also working on the schedule for Yom Teruah. I'll be in North Georgia for that, and then I'm going to be looking toward an Israel tour. We have 30 people already that are signed up for the 2023 Israel tour. And if you'd like to get on the books for 2024, you might want to send me an email pretty fast, because that tour, we limit the tours to 25 to 30 people. And if everyone that has sent me an email already is serious about it and is going to be going, there's only about 3 or 4 slots available. So you might want to do that. As always, let me start to announce this. As we have through the years, our support for Israel is something that's ongoing on a month-to-month basis. But during the times when I'm going to Israel, we of course take extra funds there to give to those places that we see that have needs. So if you would like to start to prepare that Sukkot offering, I'll be glad to be a part of that and taking that over. You can just send a check. You can do, if you send a check, it's better for us, because we don't have to pay any kind of credit card fees, PayPal fees, all those things. So if you're planning on sending a donation for us to send to Israel, if you could prepare that ahead of time, and that way we can, if you could send a check, we don't pay those fees, and we'll be taking that 100% of those funds that comes in goes to Israel. So looking forward to whatever the Almighty has. It's always an amazing thing. It's a blessing, and I just never know when I get off the plane where that money's going to be going. And he has some surprises in store. Of course, those of you that have given in the past, you know that I don't put out a lot of information about where this goes, just because, well, if I put it out here publicly, pretty well done for. I need to keep this behind a little bit of secrecy here. Not that I'm trying to keep anything away from anyone, but a lot of the sources that I work with in Israel to give money out, I just cannot divulge those people that we give through, and I hope you understand that. We're going to go into this week's Torah portion. I think that I covered Hanok Young, of course, will be, as I'm gone to Pennsylvania, Hanok Young is here. I'll be meeting with him, and I went to Atlanta and picked him up at the airport yesterday. We had a great time coming back. Be doing the Israel update tomorrow together here in Franklin, and he's going to be speaking at Life Assembly. If anyone looked at his website, the date was wrong. Apologies there. I'm not the one that does anything with his website, and the person that does got the date wrong. So he will be at Life Assembly this coming weekend on Shabbat from 2 o'clock to about 5 o'clock. And so if you'd like information, please let me know. The Torah portion is Kitesa, when you go out to war against your enemies. Years ago, this is as an early follower of Messiah, so we're talking about ancient history here, probably somewhere in the late 1980s. I saw a statement that has stuck with me through the years, and one that I think is very appropriate for us today. And that statement was loosely transliterated. I've kind of changed it through the years, that life was never designed to be a playground, but instead life is a battleground. Do we really understand that? Is that something that is in the back of our minds all the time? Or is it something we're trying to turn it into a playground? Because the moment that we do, forget there's a battle that's going on around us, is the moment that we become easy prey for the enemy. I was talking with Daniel, our son Daniel, on Shabbat, and he said that he was going back reading some of the Frank Peretti books. You remember those? I mean, that is, what, 80s, 90s? Frank Peretti wrote some books on This Present Darkness, Piercing the Darkness, and those books were went all over. They were very, very beneficial to many people's lives. But have we forgotten those messages? And I realize that Frank Peretti's books were written on fiction. This is his scenario of something that he came up with, and but in the end, it was eye-opening. It was very eye-opening for people to understand that there is a spiritual war that is, as Josh Waller's song, there's a war that's raging. And if we were to be able to look into the heavenly realm for just a moment and see the war that's going on, I think it would totally and completely define our lives. I want to go over with this to the book of Revelation. In Revelation chapter 12, verse 17, and this is actually repeated in another place, but it says that, okay, where did I put it here? No, that's Hebrews. No wonder it's not there. All right, I didn't quite turn far enough across there. The dragon was infuriated over the woman and went off to fight the rest of her children. Those who obey God's Torah, the word would be, and bear witness to Yeshua. I think it's a pretty familiar verse for most of us. It's talking about the dragon, and there's been all kinds of commentaries that are written about the dragon. I'm not going to go into that, but it says, and the woman, commentaries written there also, but it says, though he went off to fight the children, and the ruach in the inspiration of these words to Yochanan, to John on the Isle of Patmos, wanted to make sure that we understood who the children were. So if he does not define the dragon, it's important to know. If he does not define the woman, and it's important to know, and we could go into that, I'm not going to here, but in defining the children, what he's saying to us is this is what I feel, is this is what is important for you to take away from this verse. That he went off to fight those who are obedient to the Torah and have faith in Yeshua. I saw an interesting post not too long ago on Facebook that I thought was one of the greatest, this whole thing of the Torah being done away with. This is maybe one of the greatest arguments I've ever seen. If the Torah is done away with, then why is it that the dragon was fighting against a people who were obeying it? I mean, let's just use a little bit of common sense here along the way. I know that's something that, the world is not doing very well. It's common sense is not very common, but let's go ahead and break that mold and use some. That a people who are alive, that have faith that Yeshua is Yud-He Vav-He, that he is our Redeemer, that he is the Messiah. And those people are following the Torah, pursuing the Torah. Those are enemy number one to the enemy. Well, is this a verse that is just for the future? Or is this a verse that we're living out today? And as the enemy knows, Hasatan, the demonic forces, they, to use a cliche, they know the back of the book better than we do. They know their end result. They know what is going to happen, but continue to fight. And this is like a caged animal, an animal that you've put in a cage, and then you try to kind of poke at it a little bit. And the more you poke, the angrier they get, to the point that they're trying to literally, chew their way out of that cage. So my premise here is that the enemy, Hasatan, has been mad from the beginning. The very fact that he would try and did succeed in tripping up Adam and Eve in the garden. And from the very moment that the breath of the Almighty was breathed into Adam and Eve, they were placed into a battle. And as we get closer to the end, as we get closer to the last days of that war, the enemy is going to become fiercer and fiercer and fiercer. You go back and you study World War II, World War I, the Civil War, all of these different wars, as it appeared that it was coming to the end, it got worse. It's going to get worse. And if we do not understand today that we are in a battle, what is it going to be like when we're actually in those last? If we don't, let me say it like this: if we don't understand we're in a war today, what is it going to be like in those final battles? We will not be prepared for them. Now, there's a lot of things that are in these Torah portions. I'm going to take slightly, maybe it may seem a little bit out of context, but let's face it, most of us are not going out to war today in a physical sense. We're not taking prisoners, and we're not seeing a woman who we want to take home with us, okay? So the natural tendency is just to kind of gloss over these verses and say, well, that's, that doesn't really mean anything for me today. Well, yes, it does. Everything that's here has meaning for us. We just got to sometimes look for it. So here's the scenario. A person goes out to battle. They win the war, they take prisoners, and they see this woman and say, hey, she looks pretty good. I think I want to take her home with me. But after he gets her to the house, and the passion and all those things, it's like, well, now I've got to live with this thing, and things have changed a bit. And so there's instructions regarding that, but what do we do with this one? Consider this. Now, let me take it to something that all of us have probably done somewhere along the way. You can't sleep at night, you're watching a little television, and all of a sudden, there's this commercial. And this commercial is about some product that is going to totally change your life and is going to simplify your life. And you're looking at it, and it's like, the non-stick frying pan that's going to last a lifetime, and you're only 20 years old, but it's got a lifetime guarantee, and on and on and on, and it shows these people that are frustrated with their old frying pans, and then here's the new and improved miracle frying pan. And in a moment of weakness, you decide that you're going to buy it. And it comes into your house, and you open the box, and it's not a thing like what they showed on TV. Now what do you do with it? You're stuck with it, maybe. You can't give it back. What do you do with that? Well, this is kind of, the scenario is the same here. How do you go about getting a refund on this thing? How do you go about sending it back to its manufacturer? What's my point? Is very simple. What looks good now, we need to ask ourselves, will it also look good later? What will be the ramifications of bringing this into my house today? What will be the ramifications of bringing X, whatever X is, into my life, into my family, into my home? What is this going to look like when the excitement has worn off? Trying to back up, trying to divest ourselves of some of the emotions regarding what we encounter in life. I found that when I make an emotional purchase, it normally doesn't go well. I saw this back many years ago when I was selling cars, and I could not stand that business. There's no way I could be a part of that business today. People that walked on the lot and got emotional, they were going to walk off the lot making a bad decision. I was going to get some money out of it too. And so I would actually, in that day, I would actually help them a little bit in that emotion. But, and that's why I had to get out of that business, because I couldn't stand myself you're taking advantage of people's emotions. Well, we need to make sure that no one's taking advantage of our emotions, and put a guard up that if I become emotional about what I'm bringing into my life, I might need to ask myself a question: what is this going to look like later? Now, speaking of looking like later, we see the verse in is chapter 21, verse 15. If a man has two wives, okay, I could just stop right there. If a man has two wives, I know that this is written to a different culture. It's written to a people that were involved, had come out of Egypt, and the things that are happening and what they're going into, and our society is different than, well, I guess today we could say that our society is not that much different, and it's a family program, so I'm not going to go into those things. But there are people in this messianic walk that teach that this is okay today. And to those people, I just have to say, you're wrong. There's just nowhere in the scripture. I go back to Genesis, and it says, in the beginning he created Adam and Eve. Eve is, look at the word there, it's not plural, okay? It's just Eve, it's singular. And every time that I see in the scripture, I mean, look what happened to Solomon, of all things. But every time that you look in the scripture and the person forgot that Genesis chapter 1 and 2, chapter 1, I'm a little old for my voice to crack. Genesis chapter 1 and 2, every time people forgot that it was Adam and Eve singular, look at the problems. I mean, we have our forefathers and our foremothers. Yeah, we had four mothers, which is the four mothers that produced the 12 tribes. And I dare say that we're still suffering some of the consequences of that dysfunctional family that came out of that. So here's our thought that comes out of this one. Our actions have consequences. This goes to the woman that I was talking about originally, and this goes to where we are here. Our actions have consequences. And one of the things that needs to be done, I can't change the world. I've given up any hope that I'm going to be able to change the world. I know that tomorrow night, I'm recording on Tuesday, I know tomorrow night is going to be the first Republican debate. I'll probably watch some highlights of that, just because some of it's probably going to be funny. But do I think that any of those that are on that stage, or those who have chosen not to be on that stage, is going to be able to solve this problem in the United States or the world? No, absolutely not. It's not going to happen. There is only one man who will be able to change this. And his title will be Mashiach ben David, Messiah, the son of David. Until that, I'm not looking for any other man or woman to be able to change this. So I can't change everybody around me, but what I can do is take responsibility for myself. That is a lesson that we need to be hammering into those that are around us, whether it be our children, whether it be people we associate with. Take responsibility for your actions. Our actions have consequences, and if we're not taking responsibility, we are just part of the problem. Speaking of taking responsibility, we go down to in verse 18, if a man has a stubborn, rebellious son. There's a few of those around today. Now, if we read this, it says that you're to go out and stone him to death. Well, that's illegal, okay? I know that there may be times that you're like, sound like a pretty good idea. No, it is illegal. So I'm not talking about corporal punishment at that level. But what I am saying is that discipline is something that needs to be in our parenting lives, in our grandparenting lives, and in our congregational lives. Shaul, in his writings, look at the books of Corinthians. He talked about, and go over to the book of Revelation and read about the congregations that were there. What's the problem? You've got a Jezebel here, and you're not doing anything about it. You have a man who is having relationships with another person's wife. Go in and read those things. They were being chastised for not providing discipline. Now, I can tell you, in going from conference to conference, I'm not doing that as much as, of course, as I used to. But and at Revive, for the most part, the young people, the children that were there, wow, I was so amazed this year. I've talked to other people about it. At least what we saw on the surface was a group of young people who were disciplined. They were in order. Yeah, they were having a good time, yes, but there's been times in the past that we've had to step in. I've had to step in and do some things. There have been numerous conferences that I've been to that the children were out of control. I've been to congregations. The children were out of control, and nobody was doing anything about it. Ladies and gentlemen, if we are not providing discipline at the first levels, it's not going to get any better. James Dobson wrote a book years ago that I thought was one of the best parenting books probably ever written, and it was, the title I think was Reality Discipline. That it talked about tough love. That we're not called to be our children's friend. As a parent, if as a parent you want your children to be your friend, you're probably going to raise some mixed up children. Yeah, I want to be in the end friends with my children, with my grandchildren, but there is a place that friendship has boundaries, and that friendship is going to be based upon respect, and that is going to be based upon discipline. That level should be in our children. That should be in our congregations. That if someone is in blatant sin, doing something that I can open the scriptures and say this is wrong, we need to take a level of discipline there. Now, how do we do that on an individual basis is an individual basis. That's a case by case. But the end result is that if we do not discipline in the beginning, it will lead to death in the end. Chapter 22 You're not to watch your brother's ox or sheep straying and behave as if you hadn't seen it. We're to watch out for each other. This is a basic thing. You know, we live in a society today in which people will see something happening. Somebody's attacked on the street, and a bunch of people gather around with their phones and want to tape it so that they can be on the evening news instead of stepping in. And here's the problem. If you're living in, you know, many cities today, you step in and do something, you're the one that's going to court. We live in a messed up society. But that does not mean we should be looking out for one. In the community of the Almighty that He has given to us, we should be looking out for one another, not just turning a blind eye to things. We all of us in our lives, me included, have blind spots. And so, you know, I'm very blessed as far as Life Assembly goes and our congregation here. I'm very blessed to have, and I'm not discounting the ladies that are there in any way, shape, or form, but I'm very blessed to have some incredible men that attend that congregation. And men that have the backbone to look at me and say, you need to be careful here. You need to be, you know, let's rethink this thing. I am not surrounded by, nor do I want to be surrounded by just a group of yes men. The worst thing that we can have in our lives is that we surround ourselves with people that are not honest with us, that are not watching out for us, and are just basically along for the ride. Okay, moving on. Yeah, I'm just kind of, you know, hitting some of the highlights here this week. A woman is not to wear men's clothing, and a man is not to put on women's clothing. For whoever does these things is detestable to Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh Elohim. You know, it's like every year that we go through the Torah, there was a time a number of years ago when I first started teaching through the Torah, that this was like, well, you know, let's just kind of pass over this because that's really limited to just, you know, certain places that you would go behind closed doors. Not anymore. No, it's pretty blatant in our day, is it not? And again, if you think it's going to get better, well, it's not. It's not going to get better. Things are. I don't want to be, you know, Debbie Downer here, but things are going to go from worse to worse to worser as we continue in this battle. Now, I would doubt that I have, you know, anyone that's watching me, you know, that's doing these things, that are engaged in these things. You're probably as sickened about it as I am. But let me take you to a different place. What is this word saying to us? Be proud. Here's my interpretation. Be proud of who you are and who the Creator made you to be. Embrace. Embrace. There should be no confusion today. We should be embracing who He has made us to be. The individual that we are. The purpose that we have for our lives. This is why I do Life on Purpose. The purpose that He has for our lives. If you don't embrace who you are as a man, you cannot fulfill your purpose as a man. If you don't embrace who you are as a woman, you cannot fulfill your purpose as a woman. And so this verse here is speaking, for one thing, about embracing who you are. That men look like men. Women look like women. Okay, this is not talking about, if I don't believe, this is not talking about that, you know, women shouldn't wear a pair of jeans or something. No, if we're going to take it to that, well, in that day, women or men were wearing robes, okay? So let's take it out of there and see the purpose of this verse. So embrace who you are and also honor who you are. Honor yourself. I was in a conversation at Revive. I had forgotten all about this conversation until just this morning when I read these verses. And we had a number of people around. This was by no means would I have this as a private conversation. But we had a number of people around, and we started talking about how the youth are treated when it comes to verses like this of modesty. And someone brought up the fact that it's always hammered into them, well, and this is specific to the young ladies, that you're to be modest because you might cause one of the young men to stumble. And they were really taking exception with that. And I said, well, I have to agree with you. That's not the reason you should be modest. Okay? Is there a part of that? Sure, yes. But the reason that you should be modest in your dress has nothing to do with someone else, but it has something to do with who you are, of honoring yourself, of not putting yourself, and this is the conversation I got into, because these young people are looking for answers, guys. And so you better be able to give some intelligent, not just what they've been told in the past that hasn't made any sense to them. It's like when I was in junior high school. The one year my mother sent me to a Christian junior high was probably the worst decision that was ever made in some levels. Other levels, it was great because what it showed me was hypocrisy. My favorite teacher, everybody in the school loved this teacher, and she was fired. Why? Because someone saw her walking into a movie. And you can't go to a movie, and it was a movie that I can't remember what it was, but it was a very innocent movie. But their explanation was, well, that if someone sees you walk into a movie and they didn't see what the movie was, well, maybe they go back the next week and they see what the movie is there then and say, oh, they went to see that movie. Really? Is how contorted? That's like playing the game Twister. How contorted can you get here? And so we need to understand that these young people, they're not buying the old definitions. And so I began to explain to them of how modesty is about how you treat yourself, how you view yourself, how you're honoring yourself. Are you treating yourself as a used diamond in the out in the window of the pawn shop? Or are you treating yourself as a fine piece of jewelry that's locked in the safe in the back room? How is it you're treating yourself? How are you honoring yourself? So the way that we dress, the way that we present ourselves as who the Creator made us to be, is about how we're honoring ourselves, which is in turn honoring Him. Next verse is called the least commandment in all of Torah, which is kind of a funny way of describing anything in Torah. Is there something that's really least? And it's the one about if you're walking along and happen to see the bird's nest in a tree or the ground with chicks or eggs, the mother bird is sitting on the chicks or the eggs. You're not to take the mother with the chicks. You must let the mother go, but you may take the chicks for yourself, so that things will go well with you, and you will prolong your life. There's other translations, I believe, that talks about if this is a mother with the eggs. So if you were to take the mother, kill the mother, take a bird and take it home and stew it. All right, let's face it. This is the reality of life and death here. So you decide, well, I see this mother sitting on some eggs, and I'm going to take the eggs, and I'm going to take them home and fry them up, and I'm going to take the mother bird, and I'm going to fry her up along with it. What have you done? You have brought an end to a whole generation. This is what happened in the Shoah, the Holocaust. Generation. There were 18 million Jews alive prior to the Shoah. That number is, I think it's somewhere around 12 million right now. We have not, 70 plus years later from the Shoah, we have not gotten, the population of the earth has not gotten back to, for the Jewish people, what it was prior to the Shoah. Why? Because whole families were murdered. I'm not saying anyone should have been murdered in that, but whole families were murdered. This is about life. This is about respecting life. There's this, so I don't get censored here, I'm going to kind of beat around the bush a little bit, but there's a whole thing today about children in a womb. I just got one question for them. What is it in the womb? There should be no argument here. And people will talk all over the thing of again, I'm trying to, you guys I think know where I'm going with this, but I did get censored the other day. I'm trying not to do that again. If you have a person that is trying to make a decision regarding what is in their womb and what to do with it, here's the only question I have. Here's the only question that should have to ever be asked to a person regarding this procedure. What is it? Define. No. Well, it's this. No. What is it? It's a baby. That should be the end of the argument, folks. There should be no other argument regarding this, but it's a baby. And so, respecting life. It is said, and there's no verse in this on this one, but this is a principle that's within the Torah, that life is the highest order. Yes. So Judaism teaches that any commandment can be broken for life, to bring forth and to sustain life. So this is an argument. It's kind of a ridiculous argument, but if you're stranded on a desert island and, after a 3-hour tour and the only thing that there is to eat is crabs, well, it's life. Now, on the other side of that is to deny the fact that there's, those crabs are there because of other things that would be kosher, but in the end, instead of dying, you sustain life. Because life is the highest order. And what do we see in the battle? In the battle that's raging around us, what do we see? That death is the highest order. That the inability to fulfill the first commandment of be fruitful and multiply, euthanasia, all of these other things that go along with that. It is in the battle, the war that's raging, can be brought down to this very simple thing: life and death. The Creator is the creator of life. The enemy is the author of death, period. Quickly, favorite verse, when I was teaching survival course, chapter 23, verse 14 or 13, depending on your translation, you must include a trowel, a shovel with your equipment, and when you relieve yourself, you're to dig a hole first and afterwards cover your excrement. For Adonai your Elohim moves in your camp to rescue you and to hand over your enemies to you. Let's just put it plain and simple. What are you leaving behind? When you go to congregation, what are you leaving behind? When you're around people, what are you leaving behind? What is I'll try not to get too technical here and detailed, but what kind of odor is in the room when you're there? Are you cleaning up after yourself? Are you looking to make sure that you're cleaning up after yourself? Or are you leaving a mess? Yeah, we got Sukkot coming up, folks. I've said it many times. There's a reason Sukkot's only 8 days. Because at 10 days we start to kill each other. You know, people come in, at first they're all wonderful and everything, and then we figure out that we're all human there, and things kind of go down the hill, and it is His grace that we only have 8 days together, and then we all go home and try to forgive each other. Why? Because we have fallen humans coming together, living together in tight spaces for an extended time. It's amazing we can do that as families. And some families don't. But when we come together as all of us, you know, things are going to happen. What we can each make a decision to is, if I leave a mess in the camp, I'm going to come back and clean it up. Simply put. Why? Because He's in the camp. See, go into Sukkot with this. Whether your Sukkot is, as we will do, just going from home to home, or you're going somewhere and camping for a number of days, whatever it is. But understand that when we come together, where two or more are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of you. Would conversations be different if we understood that when we walked in the door in His name and came together that He is there with us? Would there be less gossip? Would there be less complaining? Just some things to think about. All right, let me finish up with the main part of what I want to talk about today. In chapter 25, last verses here, in verse 17, remember what Amalek did to you on the road as you were coming out of Egypt, how he met you on the road, attacked those in the rear, those who were exhausted and struggling behind you, who were tired and weary. I would say that there is a theme that's going on around us right now, and that is we're tired. A lot of us are tired. We get weary from time to time. I read the verses of Joshua just the other day, and Joshua had come to the he had less life to live than what he had already lived, and the word that was spoken to him is this: I know you're old, and the years have taken its toll. And you can go back and read in Joshua, it's last few chapters there. But basically what he was told is, the war's not over. I know you're tired. I know you're old. I know you're weary, but the war is not over. You still got to get in the battle. And because Joshua grabbed his sword again, got back into it. I guess he was probably in one of those days he was like, I'm out of here. I'm done. But because he stayed in the war, he was able to see Israel at rest, which is a metaphor for the kingdom. Because he stayed in the battle, he was able to see Israel as a picture of the kingdom to come. I got it. We all get tired from time to time. We all get exhausted. We all need some time off. We, as Life Assembly, in the month of August, we actually took the whole month off. People got together, various places, but myself, Daniel, we took the month off, and it was refreshing to me. I needed it. Taking the month off, I flew to Colorado, did a wedding, I was doing other things, still doing my videos and all these things that I do, but that's taking time off for me. And Daniel came back 2 weeks ago, and he picked up his guitar, and he says, it just dawned on me, I have not picked up my guitar since Revive. He said he opened his, or picked up his book of music. He said, I had not picked this up since Revive. He had taken a little bit of a break. And he said, it's like a soldier. You can't have your sword in your hand all the time. Sometimes you got to put that sword down. The battle will exhaust you to the point that you're not able to function within it. But see, if you put the sword down for a time, you'll be able to take it back up with greater force. But I want to speak specifically regarding people that are exhausted, tired, and straggling behind. This is our youth. This is our young people. Have they got plenty of energy? Oh yeah, they've got a lot of energy for a lot of things. But here's what they're tired of. And this is what's causing them to straggle behind, is the constant rumors, the constant conspiracies. As I talk to young people, they're exhausted by the rumors. I just saw on Facebook not too long ago, there's going to be the current administration is planning another shutdown. Folks, that's a rumor. The rumor. Think about it. Go all the way back in your own life to Y2K. Y2K. Did we prepare for some? Yes, I got it. But the rumor a week, the conspiracy a week, after a while, it exhausts people. And we have a generation of young people today that their first memories, I work with them, their first memories were Y2K, and it's been a rumor, a conspiracy, and into the world a new one every month, a new one every year. Am I saying we should not be aware of what's going on around us? No, of course not. We should be aware. We need to be in the battle. We need to be engaged in the war. Yes. But rumors that are unfounded, that go like wildfire, and people start making their plans or canceling their plans based upon rumors. I had someone that was signed up for the Connect Israel tour, I think it was 2015 or 2016. And the rumors were flying in those years that there was going to be an economic collapse. And because of that, they decided that they would cancel their tour to Israel. Well, it's obvious there wasn't an economic collapse. In fact, if I want to go back, Larry Burkett, I think it is, wrote a book in the 1980s that there's no way for the American economy to function after 1980 something. I can't remember when it was. Hopefully I got the dates right. It didn't happen. Is the economy faltering? Yes. Are we going, kind of down? Yes, I got it. But folks, we can't base our plans on rumors that are out there. We have to base our plans on, we have a future and a hope. Remember the word tamim that I talked about last week? Jumping in the river, staying in the river. Because it's only in staying in the river that I'm going to reach my destination. Be careful in the way that we must give hope and a future. Watch out for the log in the river. Watch out for the rapid, yes. Warn the young people that are around us about it. But make sure that we are focusing on, when we get past that log, there's a destination. And that's where we're going. Because we have a hope and we have a future. Don't let them straggle behind. Don't let them get exhausted by the rumors that are going around. make sure that we have their hope in the destination that is in front of us. Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov. Have a blessed, wonderful week. Bezrat Hashem, God willing. See you again next week. If you have a few moments, prayers for us up in Pennsylvania this coming Friday night and Shabbat. Until next week, be strong.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha Shalom.